Welcome to the Resilience Sucks podcast, brought to you by the Adaptability Movement. I'm Ben.
And I'm Dan.
And we're here to give you resources and tools to help you go from a state of surviving to thriving in life.
Resilience sucks the life out of you. And while it's a necessary skill, it's one that we don't want to spend too much time in or we run out of capacity. We're here to talk to you more about how to adapt and find the opportunity in change so you can really go about thriving in your own life.
Welcome to the Resilience Sucks podcast. Today on our episode we've got Chris McHugh, two-time Com Games Gold Medalist in beach volleyball and great mate of mine. And this is different for me, like I haven't had an episode where I've spoken to one of my best mates yet, so it'll be interesting sort of how we go. But I'm really excited to have Chris on the episode with us today. Like I said, he's been a true and authentic mate for a number of years now, and played some big roles in each other's lives over the past sort of decade or more, and I just know that he's got heaps of value to share with our listeners. So, Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me. Always a bit awkward and weird, I guess. We've known each other for like 15 years now, so I've initially met through mutual friends in volleyball. So I guess you've seen me at my best and my worst, whether it's sport and life. So. Really happy to be here and, to share, I guess, some of my experiences in sport and in life. And I guess if somebody can take something out of it, then that's the best possible reason to share my experiences, I guess.
Absolutely. So we spoke about, highs and lows, and absolutely we've been there for each other through some big ones, each of us. And maybe that's where we start, like to take people back. We often start with a highlight, and we talked about, the back-to-back Com Games Gold Medals, but you've had a long journey in your sport, in beach volleyball, having started out as a junior and working your way through the indoor and beach ranks and through the SASI program, so that's the South Australian Sports Institute for those that are interstate. All the way up to national team and Olympic level, and there's been a number of challenges that you've had to navigate throughout that period. Tell us about some of those.
Yeah, look, I've been extremely lucky. I've had a pretty long career so far. I've been part of the national team here in Adelaide for the last 14 years. So I got picked up in year 12 to the Australian Institute of Sport Beach Volleyball program. So year 12 was, training 6 till 8 and then going to high school, you're finishing year 12 and coming back in the Arvos, which I guess was one of the more challenging times. Definitely had the parents riding me to get good results and not just, be an athlete. And so I guess that really taught me a lot about the value that you can put on the development of the whole person and not just, the beach volleyball or the athlete. And I'm really lucky to work in an environment where people genuinely care about you and care about the whole person and not just, I need an athlete that does the results and that's it. But actually, are you doing some self-development? Are you, taking care of yourself, your family, and the whole athlete? So for me, over the years, I've had a lot of injuries. It's the nature of our sport, I guess, that you get a lot of overuse injuries. And I've also probably one of the more unlucky sort of guys going around as well. I think I'm up to about my 13th or 14th surgery. I've had 5 knee surgeries, I had a shoulder reconstruction post Rio. We didn't qualify for Rio Olympics, needed a shoulder reconstruction. I nearly lost my hand when I was 19. Had 2 massive blood clots in my forearm. Still goes purple in every winter, which is never great, and can't really feel anything. So, I think the funniest one was, traveling to the Netherlands and getting a staph infection in my face and blowing up like no tomorrow and looking like this big sad, bulldog having your face out here and spending, 3 days in hospital in the Netherlands before getting out and playing. And I think that's, I guess those situations also let you focus in on what's really important.
Yeah.
I feel like, even this last season, there's been a fair bit of sickness going around on tour and but also at home. And we joke about it within our team between myself and Paul. Every time I get sick, we do really well. We get a good result. Or I'm injured, we get a good result. Yeah. And I guess it just it helps you to simplify things.
It does.
It helps you to simplify your own processes, but also the team processes, and allows, I guess, opens the door a little bit for the other person standing on the court to really step into their role for the team a lot stronger. But also, I guess, it minimises in my own self the amount of, in my words, crap that goes on in my head, overthinking things, over acknowledging things, rather than just being like, all right, you know, in beach volleyball, we have a point, we have 15 seconds, we get to reset, we go again. And so you focus more on that stuff, and just because you're knackered and you can't think about anything else, I guess.
Yeah, and I can definitely relate to that. Like, I think you and I have shared a few stories of that overanalyzing, and you know, a lot of putting far too much pressure on ourselves. You talked off camera before about being our own harshest critics, and you know, it's been something that, well, I think for most people, it's something you have to work through and overcome throughout life. But particularly for a sports person, when you put yourself at such a high standard of performance in terms of the way you train, you prepare, you recover, and you're always wanting to give your best, that can have you know, the opposing effect and sort of sabotage some of what you want to achieve, because you know you're laying so much expectation on yourself. And you know, one of the greatest things, and I've shared this many times in talks and interviews and whatnot, is that you shared with me, is that you said to me, you're more than just a discus thrower. When I was trying to qualify for world champs. I'd missed a world champs and a Paralympic Games already, albeit I was only new to the sport. But you know, this is my third attempt at a team, and it came down to the last competition and the last throw in that, and the voice I had in my head was yours, and it was like, you're more than just a discus thrower. Like, just to be able to go out there and do something because you enjoy it, not because you're attaching your identity to it, to say that I either do this and I'm great, or I fail at this and I'm nothing. That it's something that I do, and if I get it, awesome, but if I don't, that doesn't mean that I'm less of a person. Can you speak to more of that? Because I just think that's one of the best pieces of advice I've had in my whole life.
Oh, geez. Makes me sound like Yoda. Look, I think for me, like, I've had my own battles along the way. Like, I guess being lucky enough to be selected in a national team when you're 17 years old, and then, you know, there's a certain level of expectation being, you know, by other people's, I guess, valued that you are, you know, talented and you could go a long way in a sport. And so, and getting opportunities and doing all these things right from such a young age, that you then haven't quite worked out, like, you know, what do I stand for? Who am I? Yep. Why am I doing this? Am I doing this? Yeah, I enjoy it. I love winning. But also, I guess, like, I want to go to the Olympic Games when I'm younger and do all these things. And that you get to a point where it's like, over time you learn, especially, well, you know, I've learned over the journey that, you know, I've been through 3 or 4 different partners now, playing partners, that it's more the journey to get to the point of getting to the Olympic Games or getting to the Commonwealth Games and achieving a result is much greater. The worth is way greater in that than actually the result itself, because there's no guarantee that you know, sport is so cutthroat that it's like, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares whether you're like, you know, you've sacrificed all these things if the end result is literally, you know, last Commonwealth Games, we won 16-14 in the third set, which is the closest you can ever get in beach volleyball. And it's literally a toss of the coin, which way the point goes. So at that point in time, it's trusting yourself and trusting your teammate, but also just going, I've done the work, I've put in everything I've got, and if it doesn't fall my way, then I'm okay with that. But you're only okay with that if you know that you've done the work and that you trust yourself, I guess. And so for me, getting to that point of being, well, I'm now, you know, a father of 2 kids, I've got a lovely, great wife, Danae, and going, my kids don't care when I come home. Like, they're 3 and 1. Like, they don't care if I've had a great day on the training track or a terrible day on the training track. They're just like, hey, Dad, I want to play. I want to play, you know. Jack's like, always run with me, play with me, do something with me, right? He doesn't care what's happened. He knows I play beach volleyball. I hit a ball over the net and he gets to cheer for me on TV. Like, it's cool that he can acknowledge that, but ultimately he's like, you're my dad. Like, I just want you to love me and support me in what I do. And so I guess the same mentality then about, well, I'm more than a beach volleyball player. I'm, you know, I'm a role model for people in my sport. I'm a role model for, hopefully, for, you know, I go out as part of the SA Premiers Be Active Challenge and encourage kids to be active and get out and give things a crack. And I guess I have the platform every 4 years for Commonwealth Games, every 4 years for the Olympics, to be able to put my best self forward and be an advertisement for, you know, what kids can do in South Australia if they want to give it a crack. And that's the best thing about, you know, Brisbane 2032 coming up. You know, it's 10 years away, but it'll go like that. And the kids who are now, you know, 10 to 15, they're the prime time for 10 years time, which, you know, there's only, I think it's like 4,500 Olympians, and probably 500 of them have been able to, you know, have a home Olympics. I've been lucky enough to have a home Commonwealth Games, and I can probably say that the Olympics is probably 10 times as cool as a home Commonwealth Games. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It goes beyond that though as well, because it's not just who you are like in front of people, like it's who you are as a person, Chris. Like, and I know how uncomfortable you get when we talk about stuff that's like might touch on emotions or feelings, and yet, you know, you are a very open person. Like, you know, you're authentic, you're kind, you're generous, you're reliable, you're all of these things to people. Like we both got kids now, and it's you sort of, there's this utopian thought. You're like, great, we're gonna have kids around the same time, and we'll get to spend all this time together, and actually you just so run off your feet with work and sport and whatever else you're doing. We probably spend less time together, but there's still that. Every time we catch up, it's meaningful. Every time I see our kids play together, that to me, that is beyond that wider impact that you're probably having. And it's like, it's right here, it's right now. Like it's so cool to see Jack and Zen go running off together and stuff. And, you know,
Jack running and Zen's just like
and Zen
a little bit behind.
Naively kind of following. But, you know, I believe you undersell yourself in terms of your personal worth outside of sport and those sort of things. And that's why I know you can offer so much value, is because you'll never be someone that is out there purely doing it just selfishly. Like and I don't mean selfish as a bad thing, because I think we actually need to place more self-care and emphasis on our own being and be more personally responsible. But like you do it because it not just because it makes you feel good, because it makes you feel good to see others like see that as something relatable or aspirational, or, you know, there's a greater good in what you do, I guess is what I'm trying to say. What I wanted to come back to though, like, was we talked about some of those injury challenges, and we've probably joked before that there's probably a medical textbook out there waiting to be written on just your career, but beyond the injuries, there was, there's been other, when you're in an Olympic sport and it operates on a 4-year cycle, you know, there's such a huge emphasis on, you know, where you are in that cycle, and when you get to the peak of that cycle, you know, qualifying and knowing that you're safe to go, and that's been a tumultuous kind of experience for you along the way. I mean, what I've witnessed was, you know, you mentioned a number of different playing partners, but you know, there was particularly London, Rio, and then finally Tokyo when you made the team after two pretty close calls, like, you know, very narrow missing out, like, and what that felt like in the moment, because I remember at one point you were considering a complete, you know, change of sport, like just to check out altogether, and, you know what, maybe I'll go and try a rookie career in AFL, like, so talk us through more of that, because most people, you could look at that and say, oh man, that's really tough, but actually what you've gone through has helped shape who you are, and created this this performer, like someone that you mentioned the Com Games before, and you won by 2 points. Man, like I get the tingles thinking about this. Like, it was 1 a.m. in the morning, and I'm sitting up in the bed, fist pumping, watching you come back from, what was it, 9-13 down or something?
Oh, in the first Com Games.
No, second Com Game. You were behind in the second set. There was a moment where you guys had to work your way back into the.
Maybe. I honestly can't remember too
right.
much about
okay.
That.
Well, I watched both of them, and it was just unbelievable the way that you kind of stepped up in that moment, and that wasn't always what you were known for, but I think what's helped shape that is the setbacks that you've been through, how you've responded to those. Because a lot of people, they check out, they nosedive, they go down that slippery slope of, you know, almost self-combusting, whereas you haven't. Like each time you've just tweaked it a little bit, you've come back stronger, you've looked at it and gone, what can I learn from this and how can I be a better version of myself? So to take us through that journey a little bit. So we've got London, we've got Rio, finally Tokyo, and how that helped shape you for those pinnacle moments in those 2 Com Games.
Yeah, I think the thing about our sport, beach volleyball, is that the Olympics is like the pinnacle for us. It's, you know, there's nothing higher than the Olympic Games. It's probably one of the hardest sports to qualify for the Olympics. It's 24 team draw, 23 when you take out the home team. So currently it's your best 12 results over 18-month qualifying period, and you get top 16 in the world through world ranking, and plus the world champions from the year before, and then 1 spot for every continental zone. So we come out of Asia, much like, I guess, the World Cup soccer qualifying process. And so in terms of actual teams or individuals, I guess it's like to actually qualify for the Olympics is kind of making like the semi-finals of the swimming, I guess. And so to get to the Olympic Games itself is quite a big deal to qualify. And so, yeah, you know, my first attempt, I guess, was with Josh Slack when I was quite young. I think it was like 20, 21, which was quite a daunting task. Josh Slack, for, you know, those outside beach volleyball, is, you know, a legend of the sport. He's been to 3 Olympic Games, World Championship bronze medalist, you know, God knows how many times Australian champion. Like, the dude's a legend of the sport, and, you know, one of the real, I guess, pioneers of the sport in Australia for men's beach volleyball. Yeah. And I was, you know, privileged enough to get the opportunity as a young player to play with him for 3 years. I guess the experience for me was pretty full on, going from not really knowing too much about the sport to then being thrown into this cauldron of, you know, I've got a guy who's 13 or 14 years older than me. Yeah. You know, he's come to the back end of his career. He wants to go to his 4th Olympics. Myself, I'm just like trying to work out my elbow from my toe about training full time, traveling on the world tour, performing on there, but also, I guess, dealing with my own self-doubt through that period of time. And still today, like, you're talking about your own self-critic. For me, it's my own self-critic, but also my own questioning of, you know, am I good enough? Am I, you know, I know I'm not a great passer of the float serve. I'm not good down to my left-hand side or this or that.
Don't give away all trade secrets, mate. I don't know how. I mean, I'm not going to overstate our audience, but at some point this might be research on you.
I think if anybody's watched me enough, they know my weaknesses. But, you know, letting that stuff overtake, you know, the good stuff that I can do, and I guess the weapons and the attributes that I do have that other people see that obviously I don't always see, and I'm not always confident enough to bring them out as much as I need to. Sure. And so, you know, we went through the process. I had, you know, some issues with, you know, blood clots and all that sort of thing, and we didn't always get on the court as much as we needed to for various different reasons. And, you know, we ended up getting through the Continental Cup process to the last game. It was best of 5 games, Davis Cup style, with Japan. And we ended up losing the golden set, which was like the 5th game, pretty close. I think it was 15-12 or 15-13. And it was literally, you know, the winner goes to the Olympic Games, the loser goes drinks beers in Bali for a week. Like, it was pretty,
I remember,
pretty crushing, you know, but that experience taught me so much that, you know, if I knew what I knew now back then, we would have been sweet. We would have been good. Yeah. But obviously, you know, you don't know what you don't know at the time. And the way the team was set up, you know, it's what people thought was best. Yeah. And for myself, I guess, you know, learning a lot, and I'm, you know, always grateful to Josh and the coaching staff for giving me the opportunity and teaching me so much, I guess, high performance mentality and attributes that, Josh, I don't think you'll ever meet a more committed person to his sport than Josh Lack. Like, he's the most competitive guy you'll ever meet in your life. Like, don't even try and play beer pong with him because the dude knows the rules.
Well, there is another volleyballer that's competitive like that, and Bo Soderberg too.
Yeah, I think Josh takes.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But that experience, I guess, left me wanting more, but also questioning. It could have gone both ways in terms of using it to then fuel me for another 4 years. I guess we live our lives in 4-year cycles in beach volleyball, and it's a long time to commit yourself to just that sole purpose of the Olympic Games.
Yeah.
And so I went down the track of investigating class B rookie, I guess, with footy, and went to some testing and that sort of stuff, and ultimately I went, oh no, I feel like my job's not finished in beach volleyball. And with Isaac Kappa, we decided to get together and had some pretty immediate success. Winning Asian champs in our first crack, and we were definitely good enough to go to the Olympic Games and qualify through top 16. Just couldn't get ourselves on the court. Legitimately, we were ranked in the top 10 in the world for a while there, and Cap's shoulder broke down, and had to get a reconstruction there, and had some other things with his hip, and just couldn't quite get on the tour for long enough to keep things going for long enough. By the end of it, my shoulder needed a reconstruction, and we didn't perform when Continental Cup come around because we didn't qualify through top 16, and that was a bit of a devastating, I guess, more so because I knew we were good enough to go and do it, but also the timelines leading into that tournament. I remember getting on the plane to LA and just basically boarding, giving the hostie the boarding pass on the plane like you need to, and I'm crying as I get on the plane because it'd been such a tumultuous 12 months that I didn't really want to play. I didn't want to go on this trip, but we kind of had to. And then post 2016, we didn't qualify for Rio. I had the shoulder reconstruction. It was done. I went and bought a small business in Adelaide. While I was, because shoulder recons usually take about 12 months once you have the surgery, rehab, and they're quite finicky as well. And so getting into that new space, I guess, going and getting a real job for a bit, a desk job, and I guess you don't miss anything until it's gone. And for me, I really missed the challenging myself physically every day. I'm a physical guy. My attributes are my willingness and ability just to grind things out and really physically take on a massive load. And so for me, going from flogging yourself 5-6 days a week to then sitting at a desk and not really doing much, it was a big change. But also, I guess I missed the close teamwork and camaraderie that, looking back and going, actually, I'm very lucky in what I do. I get to call myself an elite athlete, but it's more, I get to go every day to an environment where everybody's trying to improve themselves and get better and get the people around them better and challenge each other. And so going from that environment there to an office where I'm sitting by myself and taking phone calls was super different. And, I got the opportunity then by fortuitous circumstances, I guess, that I got together with Damo Schumann, and forever and a day, we were always enemies, for lack of a better word, on the court. Him coming from Victoria, me from South Australia, growing up through the ranks together, it was always us versus them. But then also once, Damo had never been a part of the national team program. And so it always, as an outsider, it was always kind of them versus us. And it wasn't the most healthy environment within the beach volleyball community at that time. But, we were the kind of the last ones standing in terms of all the other boys had partnered up, and we were just kind of sitting there, me not really fit coming back from my shoulder recon, and we're just like, you know what, screw it, we'll give it a crack. I'll get fit. Damo's the most positive person you'll ever meet in your life. Like, he's just like, yeah, let's do it. And so, and you know, he's got this really unique ability just to throw everything at it and deal with so much. And, you know, through that time period with Damo, we played for 3 years together, 3.5 years through to Tokyo. You know, we had the COVID interruption in there as well. So that period of time with Damo, I guess, he showed me and taught me so much about just the ability to be able to take on so much externally, but then be able to just distill into this is what we do when we step on the court, and being able to just leave things at the door. Yeah. But also, as I said, like, he's just like this extremely positive guy that helped me and showed me the door that you can step through if you really want to. Yeah. If you want to be that positive can-do guy. And so, yeah, look, we achieved our dream. We qualified for Tokyo Olympics through the Continental Cup. You know, and that in itself, qualifying was an ordeal. You know, it's still COVID. We had to travel to Thailand for 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, and that was basically, you know, Thai quarantine with an hour of volleyball a day, and, you know, COVID test every second day where they tickled the back of your brain. It's going from that and qualifying for like 3 weeks of that, and then coming back to Australia and doing another 2 weeks of Aussie quarantine on the Gold Coast. You know, you're still trying to, in your hotel room, you know, got some weights delivered, and, you know, you're doing your push-ups and your sit-ups and still trying to get your jump load in and on the spin bike, but it doesn't compare to actually, you know, running on the stand. I dare anybody to go, you know, go do 20 sprints on the sand and see how you feel. And like, we're the exact same. Like, we can do it all day when we're, you know, training, but then as soon as you take a break, for us, it's like you take 2 weeks, and it's probably going to take you 2.5, 3 weeks to get back to being stand fit. So for us, it was like, oh yes, like the greatest thing ever, qualified for the Olympics, and now we're going to go sit in quarantine. Yeah. You know, we get out and we get 4 training sessions, and then you're on the plane to Tokyo and you're off and going. And, you know, we arguably had a pretty good Olympics for what we had prepared for. We nearly beat the eventual Olympic gold medalists. We lost 15-13 in the third. And, you know, I think that it wasn't exactly the Olympics that you grow up dreaming of seeing. And, you know, Rio was a 45,000 seat stadium on Copacabana Beach. And then, you know, Tokyo, you walk into this stadium of 30,000 people, and there's literally like 12 people in the stands, and you can hear your coach down the end. But in also, it's disappointing in some respects, because, you know, my family couldn't be there, and they've, you know, sacrificed so much between my wife and my parents and my sisters, you know, the whole, and Danae's family as well. But to then, you know, I think it actually helped me perform pretty well in terms of, it took the emotion out of it. When you play in front of big crowds, it tends to then heighten your emotional reaction. Whereas, because there was only, you know, 12 people in the crowd, I use that word pretty loosely, but it was actually then, you know, just playing just another volleyball game. Yeah. It's just like training. It's 8 by 8. There's two blokes on the other side. Yes, okay, they're probably 7'1" Russian guy, but it's just go out and perform, right? Yeah. And so it's just a cool experience, and really cool to share it with Damo. That was his last tournament internationally, and, you know, now playing with Paul, totally different, you know, ball game again. For, you know, when I was playing with Josh, there was 13 years age gap. He was older, and now it's like, oh, playing with Paul is, I think it's 9 years, but it's the flip side, right? Yeah. So for me now, it's trying to use my experiences playing with Josh and flip it on the other way and go, well, you know, these are the things that I thought weren't quite right, and going, well, you know, how can I impart all my knowledge and, you know, help Paul be the best person he can be and best player he can be, but then also I have to deliver on my end at the same time. And, you know, arguably it's going pretty well. I think we're 12th in the world at the moment, and, you know, won Com Games this year. So, look, super excited for what's coming up. We have World Tour in November, and then started Olympic qualifying January this year. So, you know, I guess we talk about relationships and talk about different partners, and, you know, Paul is, you know, unique again. Like, he's a highly functioning individual. You know, he's just graduated from dentistry. Like, he's got more qualifications than I could ever dream of, right? Like, and he's a, you know, highly intelligent person. And so his IQ is, even volleyball IQ is pretty huge. But I guess I see a little bit of myself in him, where he questions his ability and questions himself, and lets his, you know, confidence get dented a little bit. And, you know, that's where I guess I have to be that can-do person that Damo was for me, for him. And, you know, the roles through the teams that people have played for me, now I have to play and make things work. And that's the beauty of beach volleyball, that, you know, I see Paul more than my wife, and, you know, I always joke, it's like, you know, it's like a marriage for 4 years. Like, I see him more than Danae, and you know, overseas we don't get separate rooms. We twin share, and you go through all the same issues that any other conventional relationship have. You have the really high honeymoon periods. You have the epic lows where you're on tour for 12 weeks and you're halfway through and you're playing like shit and you miss home, and for me the kids are playing up and I can't help my wife at home. But, you know, being able to develop that trust and respect within the team, and that only comes from hard work, in my opinion. Like, you can't develop strong relationships and trust with people if you're not willing to do the work, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, and just be there for people.
So, 100%. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think, you know, hard work doesn't necessarily do it justice. It's a willingness to be open. It's a willingness to share, to care for, to, like you said, to just genuinely feel something for and with someone else. So, like, talk us through that, because, like, you know, I've witnessed a lot of this with you. I've had my own experience with you, which I can't speak highly enough of, like, what you mean to me as a friend and how much I value you. It makes me emotional thinking about it. But you've spoken about that as well, even in a new relationship with Paulie. I've seen you go through it with Damo and how close you guys were in some of those moments. And I'm not just talking about the high moments, I'm talking about the stuff where you had to sort of persist and persevere through something, like... and then there's been the converse of that as well, when there's been a real pressure cooker situation where, you know, pressure's on maybe earlier in the career when you're a little less experienced. Like, what have you really learned about yourself, like that relationship with yourself, and then the way that you want to share that with others that has helped sort of get you to where you are now, where, you know, I think, like, you know, there's not too many greater authorities that be able to speak to this in terms of, you know, if you want to get someone in and talk to them about, you know, connection and relationships and how you communicate with the support network around you, whether that's in business or in a relationship. Like, you've got those tools, man. Like, you've developed that. So, like, can you share some of those, or just from your own perspective? You might not feel like they're tools to you, but they're things that you do that work for you.
I guess is working out for myself now as an older athlete, but also, I guess, through my experiences with the guys I've played with, and how driven a lot previously by the coaching stuff. You know, I've been extremely lucky to have some great coaches over I'm just going to pause one second.
We've used lucky a few times. Like, I said this to someone else today. Like, to me, lucky, it's a complete random coincidence. Like, it's almost, there's nothing there. Like, I like to use fortunate. You could say grateful for. Like, you've manifested and created this stuff, and you deserve to give yourself credit for that. So I might be being a bit picky, and I don't mean to be over the top.
I guess when I say lucky, I guess, like, I'm, as you say,
I know you're grateful for
fortunate to have people like, you know, Shoddy, Frog, Guy, Simon, you know, now Mike, coaches who, you know, they're great people. And at the essence of being an athlete within a very small team, like, you just need good people. And that's half the battle. Like, as soon as you have two people, you need, what Frog said to me once is, like, you just need the majority of the team going in the same direction, reading from that same hymn book. And as soon as you got the majority, whether it's a small team, a big team, going in the right direction, like, I know from, you know, you playing footy, right? Like, you got 18 blokes on the field. You need, you know, 12, 14 of them doing something good.
You kind of need a consensus.
You need a consensus, right? Otherwise, everybody's going to be playing their own
Yeah.
technique and whatever. And I guess for me, working out what makes me tick, like I get a lot of satisfaction about, talk about love languages, I guess. Like for me, I like to help people. I like to, do things for people. That's my love language. Like I'm not big on, gifts and that sort of stuff. But if I can spend time and do something for you, I'll genuinely try and do it.
Yeah.
And so, I often critique my own self going, well, am I actually being true and authentic to myself? And I guess being there for people as much as I want to. Yeah. And I can, I'm through traveling, we travel, 16, 20 weeks of the year. Yeah. I've had to miss a lot of big important occasions for people and feeling like I've let them down. But then also, as you said earlier, like with 2 kids and training and travel, you just feel like you're not giving your best to everybody, or letting people down. And so and I try not to be selfish to a certain extent, but sometimes you have to be, because otherwise you're spreading yourself way too thin, right? And so I guess for me now in my team with Paul, trying to take more ownership over, this is my team with Paul and with Mike, and going, well, how do we want to be? How do we want to be known by? What are our values? Can you sit down with a person? And I guess this is where the environment that I operate in with the coaching staff and Paul, because it's so supportive, then you can open up the conversations to have those, I guess, vulnerable conversations about this is what excites me, this is what scares me, awesome. This is what really, pushes my buttons, this is what scares the absolute crap out of me, right? Like, and having those conversations with Paul, which, if I was his age and having those conversations with Josh, like I'd be shitting myself. Yeah. And so, credit to him that he's really come to the party and but there's also, I guess, that making assumptions about things, right? Like I play volleyball because I love to compete. I play as a professional athlete because I love to play for prize money, right? That may not be the same for everybody. They don't, we might have some things that align, but then other things are different. And so trying to then just, I guess, self-assess and go, well, I make these decisions because I want these things out of it, and you want your things out of it too. And then if there's too many that are polar opposites, it's not going to work. Yeah. But if we can try and mold things to go, all right, this is where we want to be and how we want to do it. And, I'm not perfect. My communication style on court is far from ideal at times.
It's quite visible. At the other end
I'm an emotional person by anybody's standard. Like, my wife is stone cold compared to me. Like, she's, and I love her to bits. Love you. But I guess for the sport that we play, because I'm literally 50% of the team and there's no substitutions, there's no timeouts. Yeah. Sorry, there is timeouts. You get one a set. Yeah. But more so, like, there's no, I can't get the coach to come down and, this is what I'm seeing from the back of the court. It's like you have to problem solve. You have to be your own coach and self-regulate and do all these things. And going for me, what makes me play well? It's being super physical, being aggressive and putting my best foot forward all the time. And in doing that, I can then get highly emotional and react to things. But in doing that, if I'm coming across too strongly in how I communicate with Paul, it doesn't help him. Yeah. Right? And so it might help me play good, but if it then negatively affects him too much, the team's not playing well. Yeah. So it's like, how do, within the team environment, whether it's business or, in beach volleyball, not necessarily what is best for you is best for the team or for the business. And so can you learn to put others first or put the team first? And I guess what I need to always keep asking myself is what I'm doing right now putting the team, taking me closer to or further away from the team? And generally, if I can answer it and go, it's taking me closer to the pathway, then it's generally a pretty good decision. And I guess the knock sometimes is I don't put other relationships down that process, I guess.
Yeah.
Is what I'm doing taking me closer to my kids, or is it closer to my wife, or closer to my friends?
Yeah.
I don't have a business right now, but I also don't believe in going, I have to put all my eggs in this basket for it to work out.
Yeah.
Like, it's a bit of a safety net for me that I like to have a backup plan, which it scares the shit out of me that some people I know can be like, nah, I'm doing this, and if it doesn't work out, that's cool. I'm like, that terrifies me.
Yeah.
But I can also see the benefits of it. And so, for me, I guess being an athlete is ultimately, you are selfish. You prioritize recovery, you prioritize nutrition, and all these things, right? But how we talk about being adaptable, through life, like, you generally then attract like-minded individuals who will support you along that way. Yeah. And yes, okay, some of them might benefit out of your relationship, some of them won't, but ultimately, you just want to be that good person for people.
Yeah. Wow, there is so much to unpack in that last 10-minute monologue. There's so many things. Like, I'll go back to the things that I can remember. So you talked about Paul obviously being that sort of 9-year age gap and that willingness to be vulnerable with each other. We had a conversation in a cafe a few weeks ago when we were talking about this, and myself and Ben were there, and I remember you saying that and just being, wow, that's like really powerful for me, hearing that and hearing it from you, because I probably had an experience of witnessing some of your career and relationship and different things, and have seen you to sort of sometimes, in my opinion, to resist a little bit of that deeper stuff, or to maybe it's made you uncomfortable when I've overshared a little bit, which I tend to do, being a somewhat emotional person as well. And to hear the way that you've led through that you've brought someone along with you, taking what you learnt from your relationship with Josh and perhaps even Kappa, and then bringing that into a new relationship with someone where, like you said, it's been flipped. Like, to me, that is the secret sauce, because when you understand someone better in a team, you then can sort of speak to each other's love language, like you said, because you're not making an assumption about why they're there and that might be exactly the same reason as you. You now have a more intimate understanding of what it drives them and how you can actually support that in the same way that support is being offered to you. We've said a number of times in anyone that's listened to this podcast would know that we always suggest that there's a third person in every relationship, and that is the relationship. So you've described it as a team, but it's, there's Chris, there's Paul, and there's the relationship or the team. There's Dan, there's Ben, there's the relationship, or us as a team. And a lot of people view it as if it's this tit for tat. So it's like, Chris did something for me, so I need to do something for him. Or they're almost keeping a ledger of things. Whereas when you place a relationship above sort of both of those individual needs, and you say, well, I value my relationship with Chris, and so then I need to feed that in the same way that it feeds me. And if I do that, we both benefit, and the sum of two parts is greater than their individual, existence. So, to me, that it's one gold nugget, I think, in terms of what we're talking about today. It doesn't matter if you're in a team sport and in individual, sport, you're still probably going to be in a squad or be around other, training partners. Just spending a little bit of time to understand the people around you and what drives them, like, it goes a long way to building stronger connections and a more functional relationship and something that will serve both of you.
Yeah, and I guess through the nature of our sport, you see people at their very best, and you can see people at their worst at the same time. And I guess that's part of being human, but then also, being able to. The classic is when we lose, right? Like, people react differently to losses differently. Everybody needs some time after, the team debrief to recollect their thoughts, reprocess things, and then come back. It's the best sign is when people come back going, I know I screwed up, but this is what I want to do now, and this is how I want to come back stronger. It's the people that, dwell on the loss too long, and really question things too much, and instead of going, well, that internal monologue of how can I what can I do better this time, and come back. And I guess, you know, I joke sometimes that I'm a bit like a cockroach. You can't kill me. Like, I'm always somehow coming back, and, you know, whether it's physically or, you know, I won't give up. And so how within a team can people keep coming back together? Because that's the, I guess, if you can't, the beach volleyball shotty's greatest, you know, I guess, catch cry is like, beach volleyball is all about breaking the other team apart.
Yeah.
If you can break the other team apart, that's who wins. And so how strong is your team relationship? And if you can just keep knocking at the rock and create this time after time through the course of an hour game, and finally at the back end, you don't know which strike is going to break the rock open.
Yeah.
It could be the very first, or it could be the 100th.
Yeah.
But you need to keep knocking at the door and stay strong as a team.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that starts just as much off the court as on the court.
Yeah. It's always fascinated me, like with beach volleyball in particular, but like, you know, I guess it applies to tennis, to badminton, anything where there's that real, it's us versus them, and they're right there. Like, there's a net in between you, and like, if you can, especially in the smallest, you know, side, so, you know, you've only got two people on each side of the net, you know, tennis it's one or two, like, there's that real opportunity. It's like, you could be the best athlete, you know, physically in the world, but if you can't process those things emotionally, like, so that you are resilient to what's being, or, you know, thrown at you, but then also to chip away at whatever's at the other end of the net and expose those weaknesses, well, then you're never going to be successful. So it's this added, this extra dimension that I think a lot of sports don't have in the same way as what you experience.
Yeah, it's, I guess, because we are, it's not like tennis, I guess, where you're at the baseline rallies, right? And you just come to the net a couple of times to volley. There's a conflict zone in beach volleyball. It's like,
I like that.
It's legitimately, I'm at the net as a blocker, and you're, you know, half a metre away from me, and I'm trying to reach as far and penetrate over the net as far as I can to reach into your space. And who owns the net almost? And so then, you know, I'm not always the best at being able to, can you actually see what's happening on the other side of the net in between rallies, not just during the rally? And how are you carrying yourself? How are you portraying, you know, confidence, or, you know, yes, I'm knackered, but I'll back myself in. I've done more work and fitter than what you are. But how do they see that? You know, if I'm haunched over at the net after a long rally, or I'm like, I'm peppy, I'm up, I'm going, like, here we go. Can I force the tempo of the game a bit more? From the referee's point of view, can I control the game rather than just being subjective to what's happening around me?
First of all, my competitive juices are flowing. The combat zone, I missed that.
Yeah, but we're a bunch of softies because of the volleyball net, and you can't really.
Even so. I guess it just fires me up a bit. But oh man, you're throwing me off now. Like, I've lost my way. It really is a unique environment though, and one of the things that I've really admired, and, you know, witnessing sort of come through that is like, you talk about your weapons, and like, you are a powerful, intimidating man when you are on. Like, you know, there's a strength, there's an aura, there's a body language. Like, I can understand how being at the other side of the net would be a challenge, but when I've seen you like really at your peak, it's that ability. You know, you'll crush, you know, aces. You know, reach over and roof people out, but then you'll also have that deft touch where you're able to sort of mix it up and change it. And like, you know, again, it comes back to that thing about being adaptable, being in that moment where it's like, you know, I could crush it, you know, 6 times in a row, but if I can mix it up 1 out of those 6, and I can just throw them and throw their judgment, like, I admire that. Like, to someone that's that really has that capacity to sort of change what they need to do in that moment, because they're a great responder to a situation. And I've seen you do that over and over again, whether that be in a relationship, as a father, as, you know, as an athlete. And again, I speak volumes about, like, if there's people out here that are looking for someone to come into their business and you know, help their leadership team out, or talk to them about, you know, how to develop better relationships within the workplace, or maybe some of the sporting team, like, you know, absolute, like, you know, #1 fan here, I guess, but also like as an endorsement, like, it just, you live it, Chris. Like, you know, I really admire authenticity. It's something I hold myself to a high standard with, and surround myself with people like that. And fortunate, not lucky, to have you in my life. I feel like we've attracted each other for various reasons. And it's I don't know, mate. I could sit here and just laud you all day, but I really, yeah, it'll make you more and more uncomfortable until you slink off this couch.
Yeah.
So look, there's all of those sort of things. So we talked about, you know, being vulnerable and open with relationships, about understanding each other, or developing some understanding. We talked about valuing kind of the team or the relationship above the individual needs. Not to say that you don't serve those needs, but that's kind of coming back to what you said about selfishness. Selfishness is not necessarily a bad thing. It's about taking personal responsibility for what you do to make sure you can bring your best to that relationship, to that team. Yeah. But then, you know, beyond that, then placing the value on, well, this relationship or this team serves us, so we both need to invest in that because it feeds all of us. And you know, you've gone beyond that, and you've talked about, you know, how important it is to you to be a father and to be connected to your wife and to your kids as well, and the challenges that come with being a professional athlete. Like, how many people go, oh, I'd love to be beach volleyball, love to go to the Com Games or go to the Olympics, and you almost just like tense up inside, and you're like, if you loved it that much, you'd be doing it. You know, we all have to make choices, and it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but there's definitely a worthwhile in it if that's where you want to put your focus to it, as long as you're still sort of feeding those other things around you that make you feel whole and feel loved and sort of, you know, what you need as a person, as a human being.
Yeah, look, I think people have a pretty, you know, you say you're an athlete to people, and they're like, oh, you have the best job ever, and you know, like, it's true. Like, I have the best job ever. Like, I get to spend, you know, most years, majority of the time in summer, and I get to travel the world. I've been to, you know, 48 different countries around the world. I've been to Olympics, been to 2 Commonwealth Games, and experienced so much through sport. And that, you know, I count myself extremely fortunate that, you know, I've been able to do this and had the support of my family to be able to do it. And, you know, on the flip side, it's like, yeah, would I like to have a bit more stability? And, you know, we play for prize money, right? If we're injured or if we're not playing well, then we're not getting paid. And, you know, you see people in other jobs and, you know, they've got great salaries and all this sort of thing. And, you know, the grass is always greener. But it's like, how can you, you know, water your own garden? Like, how do you know, I'm away, yes, for 20 weeks a year, 16 to 20 weeks a year. You know, FIFO fathers are away for 25 if they're on a good swing. Yeah. If they're not on a good swing, they're away for more, you know, and like, how can each of those relationships that they have at home, you know, what strategies are they putting in place to, you know, keep things rolling with their kids, but also with their wives, and how, I guess, do you keep investing every day in what you do to, you know, be the best version of yourself, but also, you know, be the best in relationships that you have. And I, you know, talking about it, and I put my hand up and say, you know, I've failed. I've failed at times as a beach volleyball partner. I've failed as a, you know, so many different relationships over time. But I've learnt from them, and I'm trying to be better. And I guess, like, you know, I suck at taking praise. Like, you've spoken about it a couple of times. Like, I suck. Like, it makes me feel so awkward.
I'm even a little bit uncomfortable giving it to you because I know that. So I kind of I've noticed that I've been looking down instead of looking you in the eye because I don't want to put more pressure on you.
But always been, I don't know, it's just from wherever I was young. Because I guess I always feel that at times what I've done is never good enough. And so, like, the journey to, you're never the finished product, right? And, you know,
it's the whole point though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
like
and that's the thing, whether when I stop being an athlete, I'll be something else. I'll be, I don't know. I haven't worked that bit out yet, but
more than just a beach volleyballer.
More than just a beach volleyballer. But, you know, I guess for me now, looking at, can I help people? Can I share my experiences and share what I've learned and the strategies that, you know, a lot of people who have helped me in my career, who are way smarter than what I am, you know, maybe physically couldn't do what I've done, but mentally and emotionally, and, you know, through sports psychs and, you know, biomech people who have done the study, you know, I've been a recipient of their knowledge. that puts you in I guess, a unique and privileged position where you have the chance when you're on the court to implement it, but also off the court. And so, it's pretty cool. It's a cool experience when you put everything people have invested into you into action, and it comes off.
Yeah.
And they get to share. Like, it's the worst thing about the Olympic Games and the Commonwealth Games, where it's like the athletes get the medal, but the coaches, the support staff, all those people, they don't get anything. I guess, like, if I could cut my medal up into like 5,
but again, we come back to what you said though, because you remember, like, you actually said this earlier in the episode about it's, when you learn to appreciate the experience of getting to that point, that's what's celebrated. There's a medal, but like where do medals get stored, Chris?
In the sock drawer.
Right.
But
exactly.
but like in terms of like, I guess what I'm trying to say is,
I know
like,
what you mean. There's not that public acknowledgement in the same way.
Yeah, and they sacrifice just as much as the athletes, right? Like, they're just as invested. They're just, they spend 20 weeks away from their kids, just like I do.
Yeah.
And so, I guess sometimes it's always being able to thank the people that helped you along the way is like such a critical aspect of being grateful, but then also, I guess, the best way to give that, talking to people, the best, they want to be involved in people that want to be the best, right? Like, they want to invest and sacrifice to be part of a team, just like we do.
Yeah.
And that's the good juices that they want to keep going.
Yeah. It's one of the most rewarding parts of when you, I think it's something you develop later in your career, when you realise who your support network are or who that team is. And it's not always the people that are employed to be there. Sometimes it's the partners or the kids or the, someone on the periphery, like in terms of like an official role, but like, it's integral to the functioning of that team. Like, to be able to celebrate those moments, whether it's a medal or whether it's a qualifying for something or it's just a milestone in what you're doing, like, that is something that I grew to really appreciate, later in my career and stuff. And, that moment when you shared that piece of advice, I ended up, making that team. I qualified and went to London in 2017. And the biggest thrill for me was sharing with people. Like, yes, I was the athlete out there performing, but it was like, it was my wife who'd, invested so much in me and trusted me so much along that way, thinking or being more than just a witness to what's going on, but actually being a participant and someone that was valued for their role in doing that. And, the people that gave up their time to coach you, and like you said, the skill acquisition and the biomech, and some of those people are paid for those roles and some aren't, but it's my goal has always been to create that mutual benefit. It's like, okay, in that example, I was the center of that team, and you're 50% of that center. But when you're generous enough or you're aware enough to be able to go, actually, this isn't possible with just you and Paul or me, myself. It only becomes possible because of us. So let's celebrate that. Like, that's my joy that comes from sport, and I sense that from you as well. And it's also that thing that gets you through the tough times, because they're the people that you can depend on, and you've definitely been that person in my life. There's been challenges I've had, and some people know about my injury and the 6 operations, and there's been much more than that you've been there for me, and I value for that. I appreciate you. I'm so glad that we get to share this with other people. Like I said, there's nervousness about interviewing one of my best mates, but here we are, and look, what you shared today, mate, is just so valuable, and thank you. Thanks for being my mate. Thanks for sharing it with our modest audience that's growing and expanding. Ben, we're learning as well, like everyone else. We're students of life, and before we finish up, like, I want to give you the opportunity to sort of, just thank, obviously, spoken a lot about Danae and your team, but who are the people that are supporting you to do this, and where can people contact you if they do want to get you in and speak within their organisation?
Yeah, look, thanks for having me first up. It's always, I guess, we talk about things off camera a fair bit, and even, with Ben and sharing, I guess, what I do and how I do it. And yeah, I wouldn't be able to do this without, obviously the support of my wife and my family, and, Sassy and AIS and Volleyball Australia, but, the guys who have backed us in, Paleo Hero have been with us, since 2016.
Yeah.
Like took a punt on Damo and I, and
Yeah.
you know they've.
I think
Their
I've benefited
products.
with a couple of pizza bases or
Yeah,
something through
their,
that as
their
well.
products are amazing out of Brisbane, and it's a family-run business, and you know you couldn't get better.
Yeah.
Their granola is amazing, by the way. It probably doesn't help that the dietitian doesn't put that in my nutrition plan. I know. But look, them, you know, Metro Homes, they've been fantastic supporters through COVID for us. But also, you know, Creative Real Estate, Jo, she's more than, you know, my real estate agent. She's actually a really good mate, and, you know, the most genuine, humbling person you'll ever meet in your life. Real salt of the earth character. And, you know, if businesses out there would like me to come and share my story and share the learnings for me, it's, you know, my agency is Agency X, Carly Green Medina up there in Brisbane. Or track me a message on Instagram, McHugh89, I think my handle is. So probably need to update that one. But, you know, I just love having a chat with people and sharing my story, and I guess the uniqueness that is beach volleyball. And, you know, it has so many, you can link it to so many things in life, in business. It's the ultimate team sport. Like I was talking to a sports psych about, you know, beach volleyball, and she had no idea what sport I played. And she was just like, this is the most intense relationship-based sport there ever is. Like nothing even gets close. Like maybe doubles tennis if you're like like the Bryan brothers or something like that. But other than that, it's like the most screwed up thing ever.
Yeah.
That was their words. That was the most screwed up thing.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, well, you got to love it.
Yeah, well, you've polished that up and delivered it in absolute magnificent form, mate. So well done. So for anyone listening, so obviously, you can contact Chris through Agency X. And you know, if you're looking to learn a bit more, you can go check out the rest of our podcasts, and you can also download our free ebook if you check out the show notes as well. So how to go from surviving to thriving. So thanks for joining us. Thanks, Chris, for coming on. And
mate.
yeah, mate, our conversation will continue off camera, and maybe we'll get you back on at some point to summarise those in the future as well.
Sounds good.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, buddy.